Hey everybody, welcome back to VDP1. So, tearing out a fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening because the Sega Saturn Core was updated again this week, bringing a lot of improvements both under the hood as well as visual in games, but it did have a few regressions that we'll talk about as well. But honestly, regressions are expected when you're in active development. Sometimes the regressions actually help you improve the overall core in future updates. This is going to be a very fun video. Short of that, if you guys could do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to watch the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But one game that's seen massive improvements on the visual side in some of the polygon clipping is going to be Burning Rangers, which is great for multiple reasons. One, it's always nice to see improvements in the visuals. Two, I absolutely love this game and think everyone should play it. And three, I just love the color scheme that they go with, and it looks so good coming across in clean HDMI on the core out of MiSTer FPGA. And this is one of those games. It was a late stage Sega Saturn game, and it really does push the hardware to its limits. I've always loved this game, but the one problem is if you don't have an original English copy or some sort of way to play a backup on your Sega Saturn, it is extremely expensive, and hearing the English audio giving you the guidance through the level is crucially important. Best part about MiSTer FPGA is you can just load the English version up. Now, last time we showed you this game, there was a lot of polygon clipping issues at the edges of the screen, but it was always very hard to tell what the core was doing and what the game engine was doing because, again, this basically made it feel like the Sega Saturn was about ready to burst. This is using almost every single visual trick that the developers knew when they made this game, and it absolutely shows, and I still think that this is every bit as good as something PlayStation 1 could do on the 3D side of things. But you'll see here now pretty much everything is 100% cleaned up. All the flame effects are there, the pseudo transparencies with that mesh effect work really well. All of the controls are here. This just looks and feels like the Burning Rangers that everyone remembers. And I do love how you have this pseudo active real-time lighting as well. I'll show you some of the darker areas in just a moment so you can see what that looks like. But this is definitely on the current core a complete improvement over what we saw last time. And last time was still good, but this is just a more stable in-engine image that we're getting out of the core. And that is always something that we do want to see. And this is one of the games on the patch notes that was listed as improved. And again, if you are testing the Sega Saturn core, if you find bugs, go over to SRG320's GitHub and report them. He goes through all of them and basically makes fixes based upon what people report, it seems. So it is important that he gets those bug reports in. What you'll see here in the dark areas where that green kind of real-time light goes along the wall, everything just looks great here. Again, if I didn't tell you this was MiSTer FPGA footage, you might be fooled into thinking I was just showing you an HDMI modded Sega Saturn or something in RGB with an upscaler. So this is definitely one of those games. It is ready to play now. I did chat with a few people. They played it from start to finish, seeing the credits scroll. So this is one now that you can just sit down with your MiSTer FPGA and enjoy. And you'll see here as we get into the boss battle, again, I just love the colors in this game, and they're so well represented in the core. Now, under the hood, there was some massaging of the actual FPGA code to free up some FPGA space, so I wonder what SRG320 is planning on using that space for in the future. There's a lot of quality of life improvements that could come to the Sega Saturn in an FPGA core, so it'll be very interesting to see what we get next. But as far as the performance of Burning Rangers is concerned, from the footage, the cadence, it just seems like it's real Sega Saturn footage, and that's always going to be a net positive. Now, I did say there's going to be some regressions. We're taking a look at Sega Rally here, but this is on the previous core when I told you it was updated. Everything was running perfectly fine. The music, the sound effects, the graphics, the controls, the analog support was all there. Now, if we move over to the current core, this is trying to load Sega Rally, and you'll see as soon as we get past the High Saturn BIOS screen and into the license screen from Sega, this is as far as it currently gets. So this is a regression. If you want to play Sega Rally, I wouldn't upgrade to the newest core, but I'm sure this will get fixed very momentarily, and this is what happens when you're in active development. Now, on the positive side of things, Cotton 2 has gotten all of its graphics fixed, and now it is basically imperceivable between real hardware and MiSTer FPGA, and the music's improved too. Listen, and I'll be right back. I've always loved the Cotton soundtrack, and I'm so glad more people are discovering this franchise because it seems like Cotton is back. There's a lot of remakes, a lot of compilations. This franchise seems like it was done, dead, and dusted like 2 years ago, but now suddenly pretty much everything Cotton is new and popular again, and this is one of the games where the franchise got its start. You'll see here all the visual effects look good, the background is now aligned properly, all of the sound is coming across extremely well, all of the gameplay and performance is there. This is just another game that you should definitely play on the current core, because this has seen visual improvements under the hood. Just be aware it is a hard game. You are definitely going to die a few times before you get the hang of something like Cotton. But that is the fun. This is another title that maybe you've never played before, so leave me a comment down below and tell me, are you a fan of Cotton? Have you played this game? Or are you going to play it after the video on your MiSTer FPGA? Because I'm still so excited once this core is actually finished for a lot more people to discover Sega Saturn, because I know a lot of you don't actually test the work in progress cores. You just watch the update videos and wait around. So I think we're going to get thousands upon thousands of new Sega Saturn fans once this core actually comes out, and games like Cotton are going to be fun things for you to discover. And I love after you beat a boss in a level you get a little tea time bonus as well. But this is another game that's just seen a bunch of improvements. That's what I mean when I say mostly improvements, some regressions. But again, remember, regressions are part of the development process. They are expected to happen, and a lot of learning can be gleaned from those actual regressions, trying to understand exactly how everything works together. Because again, SRG 320 has done incredible work, and it's not like the Sega Saturn is a simple hardware platform either. So getting these improvements on the current core is great. Unfortunately, Sega Rally just didn't make the cut. Now moving over to another game that was marked as improved on the patch notes with the new release is Dark Savior, and this is definitely a love it or hate it game. I've always enjoyed this game, what it does, its mechanics, and the isometric view using both 3D and 2D together, and I've always thought it's a very pretty game, and this got a lot of graphical improvements as well, because there was definitely some glitching in some of the visuals the last time we tested this game. Gameplay was there, performance was there, but the visuals were just lagging a little bit behind, and in this little track sequence here as we go through multiple scenes, you can see that it just looks good now. And again, I understand the isometric viewpoint. People either seem to love that or hate it about this game, so tell me down below which camp you're in. I really like it. I love how it looks in 3D. I think this is again one of the Saturn's prettier 3D games, and I'm so glad to see the visuals improved. This is just a really fun and very different game, and another one that I feel like a lot of people are going to discover once they actually start playing Sega Saturn on MiSTer FPGA. There's a lot to love here, and if you played it maybe 10-15 years ago and you weren't quite into it, give it another shot. I promise you there's something here that you're definitely going to enjoy. But as we get into the gameplay here, again, it's really hard to see anything about this image that just doesn't look great. The audio can be a little bit loud on this one. I did have to turn it down on the main volume on MiSTer so it wasn't clipping my speakers, and it seems like there is still some room in the core to kind of balance those audio levels out. But I'm assuming that's going to be some late stage stuff, getting the games running, getting them visually improved, and making sure they're doing everything one-to-one with real hardware comes first, and then that audio balancing will probably be a later stage thing. But if you just take a look at the image here, there's absolutely, in my opinion, not a stray pixel to be found. Everything looks good, everything feels good, everything is just what you would expect, and that is again another fun takeaway of this. And I just love how this game is both platformy, combat heavy, as well as puzzly at the same time. It's basically mixing up multiple genres to a really good effect, and I've always enjoyed this since I first played it back in the day on Sega Saturn when it came out. I believe I bought a copy used from my local EB Games. But that's the fun part about the core. You're going to get to play new things, and we get to follow along with all of the improvements. And the fun part about this is some of the battles are so strange. Kind of plays like a almost 3D beat 'em up. It feels a little die-hard arcadey, except there are rounds like it's a fighting game. It's almost like a beat 'em up and fighting game gets married together to create its own new experience, which is very odd, very unique, and very charming. It's just one of those things. This has always been something, I can't think of any other game that did this, where they actually had rounds in a boss battle. If you can think of anything else, leave me a comment down below, because I would be curious. I feel like Dark Savior did it first. But the music in this game is good as well. Like I said, I did have to drop the decibels a little bit to make sure it wasn't too loud in the edit, so go ahead and listen just for like 30 seconds. I'll be back with some more games to show you that just work. I left that fireworks soundtrack in there because you can hear that little bit of crunch, because even though I did drop the volume levels down, I cannot recover any audio that clipped out. That's just not really how that works. So that's a situation where, again, the audio in the core can every once in a while do something that it shouldn't. But moving back to Pandemonium, this has seen a bunch of graphical improvements as well, and honestly, I've been replaying this game in the background. I loved it when I was a kid, but honestly, I had never really come back to it, and the current core is just making me re-examine my love for Pandemonium. And trust me, I get it's also on PlayStation 1, so it's not like I needed to wait for Sega Saturn to play this again. It's just one of those things. Now that I've been seeing this footage, now that I've been talking about Pandemonium, I really jumped back in and been having fun. And big thanks to Andy D for helping with the captures as well. I've had a hell of a week. We're getting a new couch delivered, and honestly, half of our house is ripped apart. I was also pitching a bunch of commercial work to some clients, and thankfully that booked up. And the funny thing is, you might watch my work on Video Game Esoterica, but if you've watched television in the last 10 years and seen commercials, odds are you've seen at least one that I directed behind the camera. But honestly, I love Video Game Esoterica a lot more. I get to talk about exactly what I want, and I am my own boss. I know I got off on a tangent there, but I just figured I'd let you know what's going on, because people do seem to enjoy some of that insight. But as far as Pandemonium is concerned, this is definitely, in my opinion, a sleeper hit. I love the 2.5D games back in the day, but I feel like public consensus is that they haven't aged as well. I'm not trying to say that Pandemonium is a 10 out of 10 game. It's definitely like an 8.5 out of 10, but it's so charming and so unique. I want you to try it if you never have. And I understand, even though this is on PlayStation 1, I think the overall shading, the graphics, and the 3D on Sega Saturn are slightly prettier, and that's not something you usually heard in multi-platform games back in the day. But this has seen a lot of visual improvements on the core. Definitely check it out. Just keep your volume low. And now, as a bonus, I'm calling this Saturn's Captures I Forgot I Had. I get sent a lot from Andy D, I capture a lot myself, and he sent this over as Japanese Luigi. That was the email that he sent me with. This is Mario Mushano's Hyper Shogi School. It is just a shogi game, but it is working on the core, and I'm mostly just showing it to you because obviously it is a game called Mario, but it looks like it has Luigi in a suit and tie, and that's always a fun time. But that's the current situation with the current Sega Saturn core. It's seen a lot of improvements and some regressions, so if you're a huge Sega Rally fan, you might want to skip this core and wait for SRG 320 to release the next one, because I'm guessing that Sega Rally will be patched up. But you know I love doing these testing videos, and if you have any requests, leave them down below. I'll try to get to each and every one of them. Short of that, hope you enjoyed, and if you've never played Pandemonium before, do me a favor and play it this weekend. Bye bye.